I really want to cover them in the general questions today. I mean, there's several topics, but from Sony Ventures perspective, I don't have an office in here, CVC office in Singapore, and today I'm expecting you could convince me how Singapore could attract the CVC to be here. So probably I should be one of audience, to be honest. But I'm quite expecting you could explain how Singapore should be important for the startup investment and also the corporate investment in several the sectors. So somehow I think probably the Singapore, the local presence, from CVC perspective, local presence, a team should be quite key to organize or to run the CVC activities or corporate investment activities in Singapore, or perhaps what kind of trend or observations from you on the business collaborations between portfolio companies and the CVC, or perhaps your VCs, and also in the Southeast Asia ecosystem, the Singapore is a really hub. Everybody knows of it, and then how the CVC, or perhaps you could navigate those players to reach out to the global markets as well. So I think there are several topics to be covered. You could touch upon everything, or perhaps the sum of. So please, have your opinions, observations.
I can start. Singapore is a small market. I don't think we shy away from talking about that. But I think we are small, nimble, but extremely flexible. So in a very small country like ours, we are home to 4,500 startups. I also run my own startup event called Switch, and many of the corporates I see, they find it very interesting that they can find so many partners just being in one location, one event and all that. I think that's the uniqueness that we offer, be it an accelerator or an incubator or VCs. You can find that easy access within Singapore itself. The other part that we think we are a value partner to our corporates is I think we understand what it means to work with corporates in Singapore, be it piloting a new solutions, be it really helping us set up their corporate labs and all that. We run an initiative called Open Innovation Challenge, where we work with corporates who want to work with startups in terms of creating new solutions for be it their own problem statements, or be it partnering their startups to really venture into other markets and all that. So I think our understanding, the agencies, our partners, public and private sectors, understanding of what it takes to work with corporate will be one key reason why Singapore would be their choice destination.
I think it really depends. It depends on where you are on your corporate maturing journey and how committed you are to the region. And if that sort of both pick are for you, 2/3 of the capital consistently over the last 5 years invested in Southeast Asia have flowed through Singapore. So that tells you the importance of Singapore as a hub in the region, as well as how it is able to branch out to other cities in the region. And I think what Singapore offers to many of these players who are here is the connectivity to capital, talent, and knowledge. And what excites me the most is that over the last few years, when we see some of the best founders and companies raising money, we start to see corporates coming into the mix, offering very differentiated value proposition beyond capital. And I think that is the role that many of the CVCs can play in the region.
So the world actually today is very different. I think the world is bifurcated. Clearly, the world is going to be different for the next 10, 20, 30 more years. So the world essentially is going to be divided. And so Southeast Asia, like it or not, becomes a very attractive market. Although it's monolithic in many nature, but it's a market which is a lot of people come to recognize is a very good alternative to the big two neighbor, which is one called China and one called India. And it's a market whereby increasingly are more coordinated. Essentially, it's 11 countries, and it's a bit more collaborative among themselves. And therefore, for any corporation who looking beyond their home market, this is a good place to start. Now, then the question is, why Singapore? Now, the reason why Singapore makes a lot of sense, firstly, is the language. As we are now using English, still the common language to communication. So this is something that easily done in this country. Number two is very interesting is you have experience in Singapore. Although the so-called population is 6 million people, the actual Singapore citizen is 3.5, permanent resident is 500,000. The remaining 2 million is all the other races and around the world and around these regions. So it's not difficult for you on the street, bump into somebody from India, bump into somebody from Myanmar, bump into somebody from Malaysia, and so on and so forth. And generally, Singaporean, except for during election time, is not so conscious whether what country you're from. They are all accept you, and we all accept that we are all immigrant in some way or another. And therefore, this is a country whereby if you build your home base here, it's easy for you to grow and expand in this region because there is more tolerant and culturally, most people have a better understanding in this region, understand how to deal with the Thais, deal with the Indonesian, deal with the Vietnamese, they deal with the Burmese, and deal with the Cambodians. They all are different, by the way. There's no right or wrong, and there's always different approach of dealing with every one of them. And somehow in Singapore, you get to learn that there's a certain way that you must be able to handle everybody in some respectful manner.
The one thing to be missed, and I really want to cover the one thing, which is the post-investment activities. From your perspective, the CVC in Singapore is set up, and then the investment should be done here, and then after the investment, what kind of activities or business collaboration can be observed from your perspective, especially the CVC. If I set up the CVC office in here, and then I will go through the investment here, the startup investment here, and then for post-investment activities, what can you see the trend of value-up activities or collaborations, let's say?
We are venture capitals. We are always looking for disruption, innovation, and solving a pain point. Unfortunately, most of this pain point is happening in somewhere. So whatever we are solving, ultimately we need a customer. So the very first thing that we need to do, corporations essentially is the immediate customer, unless you are doing B2C. Yeah? There's a different market segment. So many of our business B2B solution will need some partner, and corporations is the natural partner for us. So for a lot of the startup, this is very attractive for them. How to be able to find a partner who both an investor and also be able to be the initial customer, so that they can get to the product market fit quickly. And that second most important is very much, a lot of times corporation may have some pain points. They're not going to put an advertisement in the newspaper, say this is a problem I'm having, please solve it for me. So by having some dialogue with them, you probably get a better understanding. Maybe my imagination of the pain points is probably wrong. That give you a better chance of adapting a product market fit to get to the correct solution that maybe the corporations are truly having the problem and truly trying to solve. So these are two areas that a lot of startups are trying to get to quickly with the most capital efficient manner. So corporation, that is something that a lot of startups would like to have the partner early enough.
I think for us, what we've been observing is that definitely corporates who are further along in thinking through how they want to partner their startups, they are very clear what kind of problems and areas they want to work with startups on. Because these are probably areas that they are prepared to undertake more risk, have a co-development partnership, and also have the support of the BUs to open up. And one thing that I've observed across many corporates, including some who are here today, like ST Engineering, TDK, is the intimate relationship that they have with the BUs about not just
availing know-how, but it almost became an accidental requirement for them to be keeping the talent because they want to be exposed to the newest and the latest way of thinking about things. The second thing that we've also been thinking through and putting in place as EDB is how do we get more corporates, venture capital on board? And I have my colleagues there, Glenda, Brian, raise your hand if you want to know more about that information. Is the Corporate Venture Launchpad. Essentially, we think that corporate venturing is a journey. And if corporates think about it as a muscle that they have, we have set up a program that essentially help the corporate to strengthen that muscle. This includes giving them grants to be able to build up that capability with external consultants. The second one is that we do want to see corporates progressing their relationships with startups to beyond conversations to actual pilots. So part of that grant support also cover the corporate costs in being involved in those pilots. So all of those things are part of the 30 million program called the Corporate Venture Launchpad that the EDB has launched.
Maybe I just kind of sum up the larger environment that actually supports some of this innovation that happens. So I think we have got a strong base of government agencies who obviously innovation is a no regret move. So in a lot of our government agencies, there are innovation arms that can deal with some of the sandboxes and all that. So I think for any, I agree, Kilok, but the product market fit is so crucial because if not, essentially there will be no difference from any other startups in other markets. So that piloting, that sandbox opportunity that they can find in Singapore and then use Singapore as a reference customer and all that would be a differentiator when they eventually go out of Singapore, which is a must do for them. There is no Singapore startup that can have Singapore as an end market. That's essentially not possible.
I should add one more point, very important. However, it's important for you to decide when is the right time. So that is important, because recently I have a conversation with one of our investor who's a corporate venture, and the investor will show them a lot of deal and then trying to collaborate with them. And we find that what they want us to do is introduce them a lot much earlier than what they're capable to handle. As a corporations, depending on your structure, there's no criticism here. Some company tends to be better when the product is very ready. That means the product is ready, 99% ready, then go. Some companies are better in working with startup, experimenting with the product. Some companies are better in that. So this particular investor that we have, they are actually better in the later part. But they wanted us to show them all the things that are much earlier. And end up is every time we refer to their engineering group, they always say they are too early. So that is always the answer come back, and that wasted a lot of unnecessary time. And when the company is ready, and of course, a lot bigger, and so on, and that was sold, and the bosses heard about it, they always criticize, how come you never do something with them? So, that's not their fault. I don't think it's the people's fault. The issue is always, is the company structure is ready for what type of startup? Is it very early? And you must accept that the startup are crap also. They also do some stupid thing. So you must be able to iterate with them. That's one type. The other type is when the product is 99% ready, then you are ready to cooperate with them. So that's one of the biggest challenge we find that when we work with some of our investors who are corporate venture, their definition when they are ready is not clear. And we are trying to figure out that also. Eventually, we found that usually it's exactly opposite of what they are ready for.
What kind of the collaborations can be made between you, state-backed agency, or the government linked to the VC and CVC? For example, sourcing. I think probably that's linked to the answer, and then also the co-investment activities. So I think probably some of members are very interested in how to work or how to collaborate with state-backed agencies.
Provide a platform for sourcing for startups. That is, obviously, we hunt whatever we can, and we create a platform for CVCs to have access to some of these startups. And we do that in many different ways. I run my own deep tech startup competition on a yearly basis.
So, okay. And then that obviously is a new pool of startups that we're definitely happy to have a lot of CVCs and VCs on board. We do our regular Deal Friday as a kind of event for deal matching. We can't do one-to-one, but we welcome CVCs and VCs to join us on that journey, to use us as a partner to hunt for good startups. And then for your startups, eventually work with them when it comes to supporting them in POC, POV. That's the second half of that conversation that we can come in. So look at us as a partner for every step of your sourcing, working with startups, and eventually if there are some pilots and all that, then look at some of our programs and initiatives that are available.
I will leave you with three things. One is we recognize that the region is still growing. And what is key to the innovation ecosystem is talent. So what we have launched at EDBI is called the Global Founders Program. This program targets at bring second, third time founders who have been successful and had their exits back to Singapore to build their next venture. Some of them came from Vertex portfolio. Thank you very much. And basically this forms the bait and the ingredient for many of the ventures to grow. And we launched it, but we have started growing it in the last 2 years. The second would be the different schemes that we manage to actually encourage more private investment to go into the ecosystem. The first is called the Seeds Capital, where there is a matching to their appointed partners for early stage investments into Singapore-based ventures. This is intended at co-sharing the risk and encourage investors to take on more early stage risks. Then we also have the panel of fund partners that we have, that we would also cross-share these deals when the companies mature. So across all these things, of course, including our direct investment arm, we see ourselves as a partner to other funds, other CVCs, to help it takes a village for the company to grow. And so that's where we are directing a lot of our efforts on.